ናሽናል አቪዬሽን ኮሌጅ የናሽናል ኤርዌይስ እህት ኩባንያ ጥራት ባለው ስልጠና ልዩነት መፍጠር ዋናው ዓላማው ነው። ከከፍተኛ ትምህርት አግባብነትና ጥራት ኤጀንሲ ሙሉ ዕውቅና ባገኘንባቸው በማስተርስ ፕሮግራም ኤምቢኤ በስትራቴጂክ ማኔጅመንት፣ ኤምቢኤ በቢዝነስ ሊደርሺፕ፣ ኤምቢኤ በሪስክና ኢንሹራንስ፣ ኤምቢኤ በባንኪንግና ፋይናንስ፣ ኤምኤስሲ በኢንተርናሽናል ትሬድና ኢኮኖሚክስ፣ ኤምኤ በሆስፒታሊቲ ማኔጅመንት፣ ኤምኤ በሎጂስቲክስና ሰፕላይ ቼን ማኔጅመንት፣ ኤምኤስሲ በአቪዬሽን ማኔጅመንት ተማሪዎቻችን በልዩነት ይማራሉ። በኬንያ ሀገር ከሚገኙ ስመጥር ዩኒቨርሲቲዎች በመጡ ፕሮፌሰሮች ስልጠናው ይሰጣል። ናሽናል አቪዬሽን ኮሌጅ በዲግሪ ፕሮግራም በአቪዬሽን ማኔጅመንት፣ በአካውንቲንግና ፋይናንስ፣ በማርኬቲንግ ማኔጅመንት፣ በሆቴል ማኔጅመንት በምዝገባ ላይ ነን። በአጫጭር ኮርሶችም በፍላይት ኦፕሬሽን፣ በቲኬቲንግና ሪዘርቬሽን፣ በሆስቴስ፣ በሆስፒታሊቲ ማኔጅመንት እናሰለጥናለን። አድራሻ ከ22 አደባባይ ወደ ሾላ በሚወስደው መንገድ ላይ ናሽናል አቪዬሽን ኮሌጅ የናሽናል ኤርዌይስ እህት ኩባንያ ህልሞን እውን ያደርጋል።
Hello students. So today I will start about this racial classification. In the previous time we have discussed about ethnicity. It is a matter of cultural differentiation. We call it ethnicity. Ethnicity is centrally a matter of shared meaning because it's highly associated with culture. What you conventionally call culture. We can thus distinguish external and internal aspects of ethnic identity. What are those internal aspects and those external aspects? The external aspect refers to observable behavior. Observable, what we see. Observable behavior. Or you can say overt behavior. Overt, obvious. Observable behavior. What are the examples? Speaking of an ethnic language, practicing ethnic tradition, participation in ethnic personal network, such as family and friendship, participation in ethnic institutional organization, such as churches, schools, and media. These are institutional organizations. These are external aspects. What about internal aspect? The internal aspect refers to image, ideas, attitudes. What we feel inside, okay? Deep inside our heart, the attitude, the feeling. Okay, this is internal aspects. And today we'll continue about racial classification. How do you classify race? It was common to divide humanity into how many groups? Into 4 groups usually. Into 4 main races. Racial classification, we divide human race all over the world into 4. So racial classification, we divide racial classification into 4 groups as I told you. The first one is Europeanness. The second one is Americanness. The third one is Asiaticus. And the fourth one is Africanness. These are racial classification. Race used as a system of human classification and social stratification. What's the use of race? Race used as a system of what? 1, human classification. Second, social stratification. Classification, stratification. So Europeanness. What's the nature of this Europeanness? Europeanness or Europeans, they are white, muscular, hair long, flowing, flowing, eye blue, acute, inventive, gentle, and governed by laws. This is a view. Americans, the second race, reddish, erect, hair black, straight, thick, wide nostril, obstinate. What am I obstinate? ግትር የሆነ ሜሪ መሪ ደስተኛ ፍልቅልቅ የሆነ free and regulated by custom. You see, Europeans governed by laws ብያቸዋለሁ። እነዚህ ደግሞ ምንድነው? They are regulated by custom. Asiaticus, sallow or yellow, hair black, eyes dark, haughty. What am I haughty? This haughty people ምንድነው? የተጀነነ ጅንን የምንለው አይነት haughty. Okay, avarice, savior, ruled by opinions. The last group, Africa, black hair, black, okay? Black means the facial expression, face, phenotypic, because of the climatic condition living in Africa. They are black in color, black face, hair, black, frizzled, skin silky, nose flat, lips tint, lips, crafty. What am I crafty? Crafty. ተንኮል ያለበት ነው። ተንኮለኛ ማለት ነው። Indolent. What am I indolent? Lazy. Negligent. ሸልተኛ. And governed by the caprice of ያለ ምክንያት without reason or the will of their masters. This is the view, which is the outlook, hold a long tradition by Europeans and Americans. Africans, they are black people. Both human classification and social stratification as they do, religious and scientific means were pressed into service to justify this division. What kind of religion? Theologians. Theology from the Bible point of view, maybe from the Quran. Yes, Bible ላይ እንዴት ነው አፍሪካ ጥቁሮች እንዴት ነው? Theologians argue that Africans descend from Ham, the son of Noah. የኖህ ሶስቱ ልጆች ማን ናቸው? ካም፣ ሴም፣ ያፌት አይደል የሚባሉት? We are talking about from the Bible. የተረገመው ማን ነው? አባቱ ረገመው የሚለው መጽሐፍ ነው። Yes. The son of Noah, Ham, cursed by his father, his offsprings would be slaves. የሃም ልጆች ሃም ማለት አፍሪካውያን የወንድሞቹ ባሮች ሆናሉ ተብሎ ተረገመ። ማን የረገመው? አባታቸው ኖህ። This is the idea from the Bible, by the way. I raise concepts from the Bible. So this theologian's point of view, you see, struck a chord for European and American culture. Struck a chord. ምንድነው? አውታር መታ። struck a chord. አፍሪካውያን ባሮች ናቸው፣ አፍሪካውያን ደካሞች ናቸው፣ አፍሪካውያን negligent, lazy, okay, indolent ናቸው የሚለውን ነገር theologians ይጠቅሳሉ። ወይንም from the Bible Africans እንለው ማለት ነው። The folk notions of the concept of the other hand perceived race as non-overlapping and distinguishable categories of people, which is fixed or natural, immutable in its character. This folk and scientific notions of race, however, begin to diverge in the early 20th century. Modern genetics abandon race as a variable in biomedical research and tends not to speak of race, and this has two main reasons. What are these reasons? There has always been so much interbreeding between human population. There is interbreeding. The white from Europeans and the black from Africans. They intermarried and then interbreed one another. So this race is simply intermingle. The distribution of heredity physical traits does not follow clear boundaries, you see, because the white Europeans come to Ethiopia, black Ethiopia, of course, and they interbreed, their offspring becomes what? Caste 50-50. This is the problem for race classification. So biologically speaking, there is no such thing as a pure race, and race has no scientific validity to be used as a means of group identification or categorization. This is the point. When used as a social construction of human categorization, race is human groups define itself or others as distinct by virtue of perceived common physical characteristics that are held to be inherent. In this sense, the concept of race is a group of human beings socially defined on the basis of what? Physical traits. This is the idea. Racism obviously built on the assumption that personality is somehow linked with heredity. There are two types, by the way, phenotypic variation and genotype variation. Can you identify these two by the phenotype, genotype? Physical, size, and the like, all these are phenotype. Genotype is heredity, gene or chromosome. Yes, a person or a child coming from this world with 23 chromosomes from his father and 23 chromosomes from his mother, then 46 chromosomes. These are genes, by the way. Genotype variation, heredity, which is inherited from gene. Whereas phenotype, which is highly influenced by the climatic condition, or you can say the environment. Environment, by and large, determine phenotype variation. Why we Africans are black? Because of the climatic condition living in the tropics. This is the point. So racism obviously built on the assumption that personality is somehow linked with hereditary characters, which differ systematically between race. In this way, race may assume sociological importance, even if it has no objective existence. As a social construction of human categorization, racial group is a group of people defined by itself or other as distinct by virtue perceived common physical characteristics. This is the point. Scholars like Peer differentiate the two concepts regard race relation as special case of ethnicity. He described as race as special marker of ethnicity. So just you have to identify. Ethnicity is usually related with culture, of course. Race is usually blood, race, racial. Ethnicity, biological characteristics as ethnic marker. Race is a social construct, whereas phenotypic attributes are popularly used to denote in groups from out groups. So it is viewed as socially defined group, which sees itself and seen by others as being phenotypically different from other such groups. On contrary, what Max Weber says now, Max Weber, the best sociologist, differentiated between racial and ethnic identity. እንዴት ነው differentiate ያደረገው? How does Max Weber differentiate racial and ethnic identity? By proposing what? Blood relationship. Blood is necessary for racial identification, but not for ethnic identification. Blood is highly related with racial identification. Ethnic identification, it doesn't work for blood. See, ethnic identification is related with the cultural groups. Now, theories of ethnicity. Usually, there are three types of theories in ethnicity. You will be asked such kind of question. What are the three theories in ethnicity? The first one is primordialism. The second one is instrumentalism. And third one is social constructivism. We'll see one by one now. The primordialist approach is the oldest anthropological literature, by the way. It was popular until mid-1970s. The roots of primordialist thinking can be traced back to the German Romantic philosopher, especially Herder John. This proclaims as the primacy of emotions. Okay?
በትምህርት ከፍ ብሎ መብረር ይቻላል። ናሽናል አቪዬሽን ኮሌጅ የናሽናል ኤርዌይስ እህት ኩባንያ ከከፍተኛ ትምህርት አግባብነትና ጥራት ኤጀንሲ ሙሉ ዕውቅናን ባገኘንባቸው በማስተርስ ዲግሪ MBA በስትራቴጂክ ማኔጅመንት፣ MBA በባንኪንግ እና ፋይናንስ፣ MBA በቢዝነስ ሊደርሺፕ፣ MBA በሪስክና ኢንሹራንስ፣ MSc በኢንተርናሽናል ትሬድ እና ኢኮኖሚክስ ዘርፎች በእውቀት ለመቅረጽ የበቁ ፕሮፌሰሮቻችን አረንጓዴ መብራታቸውን አብርተዋል። በነገራችን ላይ በኬንያ ሀገር ከሚገኙ ስመጥር ዩኒቨርሲቲዎች በሚመጡ ፕሮፌሰሮች የትኩረት መስክ ትምህርቶቹ መሰጠታቸው ልዩ ያደርገናል። በምርጥ የትምህርት ስርዓት የተገነባው ናሽናል አቪዬሽን ኮሌጅ በመጀመሪያ ዲግሪ በአቪዬሽን ማኔጅመንት፣ በሆቴል ማኔጅመንት፣ በአካውንቲንግ እና ፋይናንስ፣ በማርኬቲንግ ማኔጅመንት አስተማማኝ ትምህርት ይገቢውና ራስዎንና ሀገሮን ይለውጡ። አድራሻ 22 አደባባይ ወደ ሾላ በሚወስደው መንገድ ላይ ናሽናል አቪዬሽን ኮሌጅ የናሽናል ኤርዌይስ እህት ኩባንያ ህልሞን እውን ያደርጋል።
The primacy of emotions and language and define society, a deep-seated mythical community. This is Herder's idea. So he envisaged that every folk, people had its own values, customs, and language. True? Every people had its own values, its own custom, its own language, and spirit as well. And that would for atavistic power of the blood and soil that bound one closely with one people. Primordialism is an objectivist or essentialist theory, which argues that ultimately there is some real tangible foundation for ethnic identification. Primordialist approach. Ethnicity is fixed at birth. Primordialist. Ethnic identification is based on deep primordial attachment to the group or culture. The second one, instrumentalist approach. Ethnicity is based on people's historical and symbolic memory. Symbolic memory. Yes. What's the first thing coming to your mind when I'm talking about Ethiopia? Ethiopia 100 years ago, 200 years ago about Ethiopia. Instrumentalist approach. It is based on what? Historical and symbolic memory. Something created and used, exploited by leaders and others. Okay, some people use it for political advantage. Yeah. The third one is constructivist approach. Ethnic identity is not something people possess, but something they construct. So የሚፈጥረው construct ያደረገው construct. Yes, not something people possess, but something people created. People construct in specific social and historical context to further their own interest. Okay, this is constructive theory. What is gender, for example? Gender and sex is kindergarten. Sex, it is biological, it is natural. What about gender? Gender is social construct, mainly. Social construct. You see? Not people possess, but something they construct. Something people possess, you know, sex, you know, one or set more. Masculine, feminine. This is social construct. Yes. And every human society, yes, has been patriarchal society. Give values for male when you compare from female. Value. ዋጋ የምንሰጠው የወንድነት ባህሪ masculine. The education system. Yes. They give emphasis. They educate men to think and to act as masculine way. At the same time, they educate women to think and act as a feminine way. Yes, it's setting role. Yes, they play feminine role. She doesn't play feminine role. But to me, sex is a child play. But gender is a serious business. Gender. ክፍፍል የጾታዊ ክፍፍል ምንለው ማለት ስርዓተ ጾታ በአማርኛ ያለው ማለት gender. So this gender is what? It is social construct, not biological construct. The primordial model of ethnicity. Primordialist theories view human society as conglomeration of distinct social groups. At birth, a person becomes a member of a particular group. Ethnic identification is based on deep primordial attachment to that group, established by kinship and descent. Okay. One's ethnicity is thus fixed and unchangeable part of one's identity. Smith concludes that primordialism makes two distinct claims. First, ethnicity and ethnic attachment is natural and innate, which would never change over time. And secondly, it is ancient and perennial. By this, ethnicity is ascribed status. What kind of status do you know? Status can be divided into two. The first one is ascribed status, and second one is achieved status. Achieved status, ascribed status. Status ሁለት አይነት status ነው ያለው ሁሌ። ኤጅ ምንድን ነው? እስኪ ንገረኝ ሮዳስ። አሪፍ ላይ ገብቶ ነው።
Yes.
Okay, can you give me an example? For example, ascribed status and achieved status. Age አሁን ምንድን ነው? You meet nanogenarians or octogenarians. የ80 ዓመት nanogenarians የ90 ዓመት ሰዎች ታገኛላችሁ አይደል? ይሄ achieved status ምንድን ነው? achieved ነው ወይስ ascribed ነው?
Ascribed.
Rodolph.
Yes. I think described ይመስለኛል.
Ascribed?
Yeah.
Okay. Ascribed status. Yes. What about set mohon when one mohon? Is it ascribed or achieved?
It's ascribed again.
Ascribed. Yes. Ascribed status. ምንም ወጭ ሳናወጣበት ምንም ሳንለፋበት እንዲሁ በተፈጥሮ የምናገኘው ነገር ሁሉ ascribed ነው። እድሜማ ይመጣል የግድ እኮ age it is ascribed but achieved status is by effort. People becomes just learning throughout his career and he becomes a doctor, professor, isn't it? After long careers, maybe, because it is achieved status. Achieved status. So, ethnicity is an ascribed status, and ethnic membership is fixed, permanent, and primarily ascribed to birth. So, status ስንል ሁለት አይነት status እንዳለን ማወቅ እንችላለን። Instrumentalist or situational theory. So, this is all about primordialism. What about instrument? I think this is self-explanatory. በራሱ ገላጭ ነው። Instrumental, situational theory. The instrumentalist theory view ethnicity as situationally defined, depending on rational calculation of advantage and stimulated by political mobilization under the leadership of actors whose primary motives are non-ethnic. Yes. This bank, 1996, explained the instrumentalist understanding of ethnicity as an instrument of group mobilization for political and economic needs. Instrument for its own advantage, for people's advantage, for politically, instrumentalist theory. For instrument, instrument, material. Don't be materialist. By this, ethnicity is something that can be changed, constructed, or even manipulated because it works for, yes, for political agenda sometimes. Ethnicity is a group of options in which resources are mobilized for the purpose of pressuring the political system. Okay? The last one is social constructivist theory. Social constructivist. Self-explanatory. አሁን ሶስት አይነት ቲዮሪዎች አይተናል። Ethnic theories. The first one is primordialism. The second one is instrumentalism, or you can say situationalism. And the third one is social constructivist theory. This, perhaps the most interesting aspect of this sport, is subjectivist stance, which sees ethnicity as basically a social psychological reality. Social psychological reality, or a matter of perception of us and them. Inya, nasu, inya, social constructive. The political agenda, አሁን ምንድነው የምንለው ዛሬ መደመር ምንለው ነገር አለ አይደል? ሶሻል ኮንስትራክቲቪስት ቲዮሪ ሶሻል ኮንስትራክቲቭ የኛ ምንድነው አስ ዛም ይሄኛ ነው ይሄ እነሱ ነው። By this is more dependent on socio-psychological experience, social-psychological experience, the social or psychological memories. This is ethnicity. This is all about anthropology courses. እንገናኛለን ፌስ ቱ ፌስ ያባጭር ባሁን በዚህ ተወሰነ ጊዜ anyway which social yes
አንዳንድ መጽሐፎች ላይ ግን ማለት ነው አራት አይነት ቲዮሪዎች ያሉት ነው የሚሉትና ማቴሪያሊዝምም ይጨምራሉ።
ማቴሪያሊዝም ማለት ኢንስትሩሜንታሊዝም የሚለውን አድርጌው ነው እኔ ገብቶሻል
እኮ አይ እሱም አለው ኢንስትሩሜንታሊዝም የሚለውም አለው
ማቴሪያሊዝም
አለው
ግን ማቴሪያሊዝም ምንድነው መሰለሽ ፕራይሞርዲያሊዝም ሶሻል ኮንስትራክቲቪስት ቲዮሪ and ማቴሪያሊስት ቲዮሪ ማቴሪያሊስት የሚለው ከዛ ጋር አብሮ ስለሚጠቃለል ነው አንዴ ሰምተሽኛል ሁለቱ በአንድ ይመጣሉ ማቴሪያሊስት አሁን ለኔ ግባት ሶስት አይነት እንትኖችን ምናልባት እንደዚህ በዚሁ አጋጣሚ ሶስት አይነት ቲዮሪዎችን መጥቀስ መቻል አለብን ማቴሪያሊስት ማቴሪያል ብለን የምናነሳቸው ነገሮች ፕራይሞርዲያሊዝም ኢንስትሩሜንታሊዝም and social constructivist theory ብለን እናነሳለን ኦብጀክቲቭ እንለው ደግሞ አለ ኦብጀክቲቭ ሳብጀክቲቭ ኢንተርሳብጀክቲቭ ይሄ ነገር ይገባችኋል በእምነት or መንበራ
When it is subjective, it becomes personal.
Okay. What about objective?
I think it's general form.
What about intersubjective?
Maybe the internal features of the subjective case.
Intersubjective, internal. Anyway, it's good try. Objective exists independently of human consciousness. Independently. አሁን radioactive emission, radioactive element የሚባል ነገር ተምራችኋል መቼም እነ ዩራኒየም እነ ቶሪየም ምንላቸው radioactive elements ዲስከቨር ከመሆናቸው በፊት ነበሩ ዲስከቨር ከሆኑ በኋላ አሉ ኦብጀክቲቭ ፊኖሜናን እንለዋለን አሁን ማሪ ኬሪ radioactive ዲስከቨር ያደረገች ሴት ነች ረጅም ጊዜ ስትመራመር ግን እንደሚጎዳት አታውቅም ነበር የሞተችው በradioactive element ይገርማችኋል ስኪን ካንሰር ሆኖባት ማለት These are objective phenomena subjective phenomena exists depending on the consciousness ያኛው independent ነው ያልኳችሁ subjective exists depending on the consciousness it disappear or change if the individual change አሁን የ5 ዓመት የ4 ዓመት የ6 ዓመት ህፃን ሆናችሁ የምታስታውሱት ሰው የለም የፋዘራችሁ ቁመት እንዴት የምታዩት ነበር አሁን ስታድጉ ደግሞ እኩል ሆናችሁ ትገኛላችሁ ዛሬ የምታስታውሱ ድሮ እኮ ትልቅ ነበር ረጅም ነበር እኮ ምትሉት ሰው እኮ አለ እነሱ ነው ምናልባት አይ ድሮ እኮ እዛ መሬት ላይ እግሬ ላይ ሆናችሁ ነው የምታገኙኝ የነበረው ሊሏችሁ ይችላል because it's subjective exists depending on the consciousness it disappears intersubjective shared imagination intersubjective phenomena have you an example the best example is our dollar ሲባል ምን ነው የሚሰማችሁ Paget company Toyota Toy Mr. Toy and አይደለም የመኪና ካምፓኒ ሰዎቹ እኮ ሞተዋል ሼር ስለሆነ ግን ኢማጂኔሽኑ አላው Paget ከመቶ ዓመት በፊት የነበረ ድርጅት አሁንም ይቀጥላል ዶላር እና አሜሪካ ሲባል አሁን ስራ ዘወለ ሼር ኢማጂኔሽን አለ አይደለም ኢንተር ሳብጀክቲቭ ምንላቸው ሼርድ imagination natural this is the point አሁን በየትኛው shared imagination okay or you can say social imagination is governed by imagined order which imagine order or imagine social imagination is common everywhere religious hierarchy gender hierarchy የትኛውም ቦታ የምናገኘው ማለት ነው which hierarchies social construction theory gender everywhere እናገኘዋለን አያችሁ everywhere የምናገኘው ማለት ነው gender hierarchies masculine feminine ይህንን ነው የሚመስለው this is all ስንገናኝ face to face ያው እናወራቸው ይኖራሉ እስከዛው ድረስ ያው በስታችሁ እንትን መሰረት አንበቡ እንትናችሁ ደርሶኛል አሳይመንቱ ኢሜል አድርጋችሁልኛል ጥሩ ነው ስለዚህ face to face after 2 weeks maybe we'll meet nice to meet you again ምትሉኝ ካለ ምናልባት ይሄኛው ፓወርፖይንት ሼር ለተደረጋችሁ ሰምቻለሁ መጥቶላችሁ አይደል ስለዚህ በዚህ መሰረት ታነባላችሁ አሳይመንታችሁ ደርሶኛል ስለዚህ እንገናኛለን ማለት ነው
ልዩነት መፍጠር ዓላማችን ነው። ዓለም አቀፍ ተወዳዳሪ መሆን አለባችሁ። የናሽናል ኤርዌይስ እህት ኩባንያ ናሽናል አቪዬሽን ኮሌጅ ጥራትና ደረጃውን የጠበቀ ስልጠና በመስጠት ብቁ ዜጋ እያፈራን ነው። በፍላይት ኦፕሬሽን፣ በበረራ መስተንግዶ፣ በቲኬቲንግና ሪዘርቬሽን፣ በሆቴልና ቱሪዝም ሙያዎች አሰልጥነን ተወዳዳሪ እናደርጉታለን። ኮሌጃችን ካናዳ ከሚገኘው ኢንተርናሽናል ኤር ትራንስፖርት አሶሲዬሽን አያታና ከእንግሊዙ ICM ጋር በመተባበር ዓለም አቀፍ ዕውቅና ያለው ስልጠና እየሰጠ ይገኛል። በፍላይት ኦፕሬሽን፣ በበረራ መስተንግዶ የምንሰጣቸው ስልጠና ከኢትዮጵያ ሲቪል አቪዬሽን ባለስልጣን ሙሉ ዕውቅና አለው። አድራሻ ከጎላጉል ታወር 22 አደባባይ ወደ ሾላ በሚወስደው መንገድ ላይ የናሽናል ኤርዌይስ እህት ኩባንያ ናሽናል አቪዬሽን ኮሌጅ ህልሞን እውን ያደርጋል።